From the Asgard Company Studios in beautiful Wichita Falls, Texas, from the finest mind in the modern fitness industry, the one true voice in the strength and conditioning profession, the most important podcast on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, starting Strength Radio. Welcome back to Starting Strength Radio. It's Friday because what other fucking day would it be? You know, Friday's the best day of the week. Remember when you were little and Friday was your last day of school for 2 days and Friday was the coolest day of the week? I remember that, and it still is. So that's why we have Starting Strength Radio on Friday. And those of you people that don't understand that, God help you. We're here with our friend Justin Nazaroff. Justin's got a company in Novi, Michigan called Fenix Ammunition. Fenix Ammo. What's the actual name? Fenix Ammo? You spell it all the way out, or is it just?
Yep, all the way out.
Well, that's luxurious of you. You know,
that's a lot of.
It's like somebody that can, almost like somebody that can afford another middle name. You ever known anybody with two middle names?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you know, what are their parents thinking? Parents are thinking, hey, we got the money. That's what they're thinking. So, Justin, wanted to talk to you today about several things of interest to lots and lots of people that watch the podcast here. But the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was this thing last night with this Rob Pincus boy, who's associated with some Second Amendment organization. And the first question I got for you is, what the fuck were you thinking about talking to this guy? Look, it's not like we don't have enough spineless weasels all over the place already, but we got to talk to spineless weasels that are Second Amendment advocates too? What did you... Did you not know?
Oh, I knew for sure. I mean, to be honest, it was just a matter of it had to come to a head at some point. I mean, I met him at SHOT Show in 2020. Before that, I had never even heard of the guy, but he can't seem to keep my name and the name of my company out of his mouth. He talks about us over on Instagram. We don't have the ability to respond. So,
well, that's what I would do if I were he.
Yeah. So, you know, his whole thing is he believes that we have to be more inclusive in the gun community, which was
because that works so well.
Right.
Before.
And so his problem is he doesn't seem to understand the difference between diversity within the gun communities is great. I mean, you know, if we can expand beyond the typical, you know, white male that people think of, that's fine. What we don't need is diversity of the core values and principles.
Right.
And that's what he can't seem to wrap his head around. He's after quantity, not quality.
Right.
And I'm after exactly the opposite. I want people who I know are going to not turn in their AR-15s if asked politely by the government. And he seems to think that, well, we need those people, and we hope that we can convince them later on. And you and I both know that that's very rarely.
Justin, what do we need them for?
We don't.
Oh, I mean, what the hell do we need people who would hand the government their guns like a fucking Australian? What good are people like that? You know?
I'm not really sure. He again, really the discussion came to be because I said, well, if you're a gun owner and you voted for Joe Biden, I can understand it. If you have other reasons, I mean, actually, I really can't understand what other reason you would have voted for him for. But if you did, what that tells me is you have priorities that are over and above defending your life and your family. And that's just not what I'm interested in.
Right.
So you can go do business with somebody else. And he seemed to think that that's, in his words, that's insidious to the community. Because we're, shutting people out. We're acting as a
insidious. I don't think he understands what insidious means. if he actually used that word. All right. It's obvious to me that these people are not. If you voted for Joe Biden, you should be automatically, and in fact, forcibly placed on testosterone replacement therapy. Because you forcibly injected with testosterone, because something is seriously wrong with your ass that is probably fixable with some testosterone. But more important than that, he didn't seem to understand the basic deal here, all right? This is your company, right? And if you want to have a box on your website that says that you do not sell ammunition to people who own purple shirts, then it's your company, and you should be able to do that. And if that costs you a bunch of business, then there you go. The market paid you back for your, prejudice, so to speak. It's your business. It's no one else's business.
And he claims to be a libertarian, free market libertarian.
This guy
over and over again.
Yeah, I heard that.
Understand the fundamental concept.
The goddamn guy's a politician. That's all there is to it. He's one of these people he's established his little bread and butter position in the Second Amendment organization. But he has learned over his vast years of experience, which, by the way, Justin, you simply do not possess. You do not possess the levels of experience and intelligence that our friend Rob Pincus has earned the hard way, right?
Yeah.
But over that period of time, in acquiring all this depth of experience, he's also learned how to say shit that
without actually saying anything.
Without actually saying anything. That's exactly right. He's learned how to use words the way politicians use toilet paper. And this is common to all these people. They can't just say 2 + 2 is always and irrevocably 4, because that would expose them to some kind of liability or I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't hear the guy stake out a position at all last night, except that we need to be nice to people that voted for Joe Biden. What a Biden voter voted for. He voted for the superficial pleasure of saying to the ballot box, I'm green. I feel. I don't think, I feel. I feel positively about the planet. I feel positively about Joe Biden because Donald Trump said mean things to people. Donald Trump was mean. He was so mean. I'm just so glad he's not there anymore. And meanwhile, that level of analysis has people freezing to death in Texas. Now, Mr. Pincus is hovering around that level of silliness, right? I don't know what. I wonder. I get the impression that he's 55, something like that. You know, all his depth of experience has been acquired over years and years and years and years, and but at some point in this process, he's lost his ability to understand that some shit is yes and some shit is no.
Yeah, that's more or less what I said, and I forgot to use the analogy of Texas in that discussion, which was exactly that's the problem that you're seeing for yourself. So when all these people in California and New York and Oregon and all these places that they've screwed up, and they come to Texas, they end up diluting the sample, if you will.
That's
so
right.
Now you have Texas leaning purple when there's just no way that should be the case. So all these people that moved to Austin still hold the same values that they held in California and they're importing those politics. And that's precisely the problem that we're seeing in the gun industry. If we allow people to dilute the sample and get to the point where, CNN can go out and take a poll of gun owners and arrive at the conclusion that 80% of us support universal background checks. We just know you're either lying, which wouldn't surprise me, or they're polling these people that Rob Pincus feels the need to reach out to. Somebody that bought a gun during the pandemic, maybe shot it, maybe didn't, has it in the original case under their bed. And as soon as they feel that the government can provide to them security again, they're going to be more than happy to turn that thing in. And what's more, they're also going to be willing, if asked, to say, yeah, my neighbor owns 5 or 6 of these things, and we used to talk about them. So, when the time comes for things to be turned in, you have these people running around ratting out their neighbors, the people that they used to be friends with. And I just, there were 2 separate issues. I don't feel the need to do business with those people. And those people need to understand, at very least, they need to understand the ramifications of what they've done. And if they still believe that that's the right way to go, then I definitely don't want to do business with them. And he just couldn't seem to wrap his head around the idea that this is not what the industry needs.
No. I mean, over and above, you're absolutely right to do exactly what you want to with your own business. He doesn't seem to understand that just like all exercises, not all opinions are created equal. And, it is just so, yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time. Dogma is what this gets called. In other words, 2 + 2 = 4 is dogmatic. Isn't that bizarre? Isn't it bizarre that this is how we have been so thoroughly penetrated by people who feel instead of think, that is an acceptable reason for doing things now. You don't want to be dogmatic. If I hired an engineer to build a bridge for me, a multi-billion-dollar bridge project, I'd rather that engineer was dogmatic. Right? So the fucking thing doesn't fall down and kill everybody's ass. Because that's happened before. But
there's I'm not even sure what to call it, but he seemed to have a real problem with the idea that people can have a principle, and that those principles are something that you carry forward through your life into your business.
And they're inviolate. They're absolute. They're absolute. There are a few principles that must be regarded as absolute. Like my freedom to not let Rob Pincus in my house. Because it's my house. It's my house. And people that I don't want in my house can't come in my house because it's my house and I bought it and I paid for it and I paid the taxes on it. And it's mine. And that's not up for discussion. Some shit's not up for discussion. My ability to defend myself is not up for discussion. All right? And, yeah, is this spineless weasels don't seem to understand this. So, we've been assuming here for a few minutes that everybody saw this goddamn thing last night, and that's certainly not the case. It's far from the case. I think most of the people that are watching this are aware of the fact that, because you've been on TV about this, about your loyalty test, your check the box if you voted for Biden oath, So what precipitated this conversation between you and this guy last night?
Yeah, so about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I had seen a gun store in New Hampshire that had a sign on the front of their shop that said, "We don't want to do business with Joe Biden voters," and I thought that was funny. And since we don't do any in-person business here, everything is through our website, I thought, well, maybe there's a way I can incorporate that into the site. So we have a little checkbox you have to check in order to move through the checkout process. And originally I put that there when things were getting really busy. We were a little bit behind, and I just wanted people to understand that there was a lead time associated with their orders. So I updated it to include in the terms of service that I agree I did not vote for Joe Biden. And so that had been in place for several weeks. I didn't hear anything about it from anybody. I wasn't even sure if anyone noticed. Then I got a phone call from we did a big sale on a Thursday, and I got a phone call, and a woman said, I'm confused. I'm trying to check out, but it's asking me to check this box that says I didn't vote for Joe Biden, and I did. What do I do? And I said, well, we don't want your business. And she was...
You should have said, well, you could lie. Depends on how bad you want the ammunition. Do you want it bad enough to be a liar as well as an idiot?
Yeah. Huh? So, and we actually had she hung up, and then she called back a little bit later, and we talked for about half an hour, and I didn't change her mind. I tried to point her in the right direction. She seemed to be fine with everything that Biden's proposing. So I said, look, you got to read his plan for yourself. And so then I thought to myself, well, I should probably explain this. And so I made a Twitter post and told people about the checkbox, and I explained our reasoning and our thought process. And yes, we are serious. We feel this is very important. And it ended up getting shared around the internet by some big names. And I did an interview with Newsmax and got a little bit of publicity in that sense. But really what I wanted to do was raise awareness. And so I actually updated the site. Now we have a gateway. So, if you go to, say, a website that sells alcohol or vape products, something like that, it'll pop up a window that asks if you're over the age of 21. Right. And so our site is very similar now, but it pops up a window that says, did you vote for Joe Biden? If you click no, it lets you proceed into the site. If you click yes, then it actually redirects you to joebiden.com/gun safety. And the idea was, if you don't know his plan, then now you can see it. And we've redirected more than 150,000 people in 3 days to his. We probably redirected more people to his site.
Well, of course you did. Nobody reads Joe Biden's website. What kind of idiot would do that? Even they don't do that.
I legitimately thought to myself, well, some of these people are going to read this and just not care. Some people might have been a third-party voter or might not have voted at all, and they're going to click yes just for the hell of it to see what happens, and they're going to be able to see this for themselves. And hopefully we inform people and at least make sure that they, Rob Pincus's whole point seems to be that Biden voters are ignorant of his plan. Well, they voted, but they don't really understand what they voted for, even though they talked about it in every Democratic debate.
Right. And that's okay with Mr. Pincus, right? It's okay if they're ignorant about it. Sell them ammunition anyway. God knows what else they're ignorant of. But it's okay for them to have. Oh, God. All right. So how did you get hooked up with this guy in terms of this thing last night?
So we both have a mutual friend in common, Maj Toure at Black Guns Matter, organization we support pretty significantly. We donate a lot of ammunition to his efforts. He teaches gun safety in inner cities all across the country. Right. And he's done some work with Pincus. And so he said, you know what, look, you guys have been having it out on Twitter. Why don't we just do this thing? Let's get you guys together and have a discussion, and you can make your points and he can make his points. And I said, that's fine. If this puts it to bed and it gets him to stop talking about us in a negative way, that's fine, because I have never once in my life woken up in the morning and thought, you know what, I really want to know what Rob Pincus thinks about my To wake up every day wondering what we're doing and having a problem with what we're doing and wanting to talk about it and trying to rally support and, you know, coming up with his hashtags. I mean, it's kind of sad, really, but
spineless weasels are everywhere.
Right.
They really
and I think that's really, you know, part of his issue is he runs a Second Amendment organization that he's trying to build. And he's got corporate sponsors. You know, he's sponsored by Springfield and some other big name companies. I believe he's actually sponsored by Winchester. And so, you know, he's got let's say that back in the day when he was a young pup, he was a little, you know, rough around the edges, but his edges have been rounded off very nicely. And unfortunately, that's what happens in the gun industry. If you want to get corporate sponsors, you want to get lined up with the big companies, you've got to have a pretty milquetoast opinion, and it really seems to bother him that we fortunately are in a position where we haven't had to do that. And I'm not trying to be Winchester or Remington or some company. I'm perfectly happy with the niche that we've carved and the relationships that we've built. And I think he just really has a problem with the idea that we are making a name for ourselves and people are listening to what we have to say, and less people seem to be listening to what he has to say.
But if last night's exchange was any indication, he doesn't have anything to say except, can't we all just get along? You know, to quote the words of the famous Rodney King.
This happens in our world too. You know, these guys just equivocate themselves into complete irrelevance, and they get mad when you've got a guy with a strong, you know, a guy or a company with a strong personality, strong principles, and opinions that are backed up, and then they just can't handle it. They fucking lose their minds. You know,
right, because it's not good to say
things, or just to say things in general.
To say things in general and say this is the way shit is.
Right.
And if you think I'm wrong, let's hear it. And then there's silence, and therefore we're, you know, all right. But this is the way it's been over here for quite some time, and it's just.
I'd say it's actually very similar to the fitness industry in that way. I mean, obviously there are, you know, CrossFit, these programs that have made real big names for themselves, but unfortunately, as I think you would agree, have diluted the sport in a sense, where they don't focus on the core principles, the things that you guys are focusing on.
Right.
And they seem to get really angry at the niche that you've carved and at the idea that you don't want to take over the world. You're perfectly happy with doing what you do and letting them do what they do and letting it all come out in the wash and allowing people to decide what works best for them.
Well, we've always said that we're narrow casting, and I haven't heard from anybody at CrossFit in a long time. I talked to Glassman a year and a half ago on the phone. He and I are still friendly. And but in terms of CrossFit Inc., you know, he made a real bad mistake last year when he apologized for what he'd said. You can't do that. You can't say something you believe, and then when shit hits the fan, say, "Oh well, I shouldn't have said that." You just can't do that. And he fucked up and did that. And, you know, it took Rogue Fitness about 15 minutes to throw his ass under the bus after he did that. And, yes, Rogue Fitness is dedicated to getting along with everyone, despite the fact that not everyone is worth getting along with. So, as a result, we're going to cut all ties with Greg Glassman and CrossFit. And, okay, that's fine. That's the way you want to do it. Y'all go ahead. But, you know, we don't use them anymore. And it's you know, it's just shameful that you know, in this particular case, I mean, in this particular case, that really galls me because Rogue Fitness wouldn't even be in existence without CrossFit. They would not exist. They literally would not exist. They're a great, big, successful company. They have excellent customer service. And at one time, they were our go-to deal. But my God, you can't behave that way. And once again, we are narrow casting. We don't expect everybody to appreciate what it is we're doing, and so are you. You are narrow casting as well. Now, by narrow, and let me clarify what I mean by this. I would like very much if everybody on earth did squats, presses, bench presses, deadlifts, and power cleans. Okay? But not everybody on earth is intelligent enough to understand why they should. And I also know that. All right? And as a result, we are talking accidentally. We're speaking to the broad market, but we're being received by a very narrow slice of the market because of the nature of what we say you need to do. And you're in exactly the same position, right? And that's where I want to be. I'm assuming that's where you want to be too, right?
Right, and we've never, tried to claim otherwise. Back when we started the company, after the first year, when Trump got elected and the industry was starting to shift, I took a look and I said, well, we need to find a niche. So we went into competitive shooting and people that take training classes, and those people are narrowcast in the same to the same degree. They have specific objectives that they're looking to fulfill. They have a very particular mindset. I mean, I've been to hundreds of shooting competitions. I've talked to and shaken hands with tens of thousands of shooting competitors, people that take training classes, and I mean, I would estimate the number of people who voted for Joe Biden that I've met at those places to be about as close to zero as you can get. Mm-hmm. And we talk politics there. It's not like I'm
sure. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, it's not like I'm making assumptions here, and so that's fine with us. Like we've never tried to be all things to all people. I'm not interested in teaming up with the NRA. I'm not interested in teaming up with, local gun clubs that we perceive to be teaching things that we wouldn't want to teach. So we select who we work with and we stay in our lane. And that, I think, really makes some people angry because it makes them feel like they don't have any leverage against you. We don't have any sponsors. Mm-hmm. We don't have anybody that we're beholden to.
That's a real good point, Justin.
Yep,
the way people have leverage over you is they make you dependent on them. And it really pisses them off if you're not. That really, really pisses everybody off. I mean, how does the federal government have leverage over all the states? Money. They give them money. If you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to take away your federal highway funds. And no state has the balls to say, take them away. We'll have dirt roads, but at least they'll be our dirt roads, But they none of them behave that way. Places like Hillsdale College are few and far between. And
they're one of the shining jewels in that market. We're lucky to have them here.
Right. I mean, we get asked on a regular basis to come do our seminar for government organizations or state-owned campuses, and we just don't work there. We work in private gyms, and that's all. We won't be at a college. We won't be at last time we did a gig was for the San Antonio Fire Department. Last time we did a gig for a government organization. It was a giant pain in the ass, and we're not going to do it again. We don't need the money that bad. And that's the whole deal. If you don't need the money that bad, then they have no leverage over your ass. And when you have a box on your website that you make them check that essentially says, we don't need the money that bad, oh, it pisses them off. Because more than anything else, they want control of you.
Yeah, and we even started that process a few weeks ago before all this Biden stuff went down. Same deal. The only governments that we worked with were local police departments and municipalities who bought in for, their police officer qualifications, which are mostly a joke anyway. And early on in our company, that was, good money. It was decent sized orders in one lump sum, but you had to wait 30 days for your money. It was always kind of a pain. And then, come November of last year, we get fined by our health department as a result of our local police department filing a report that we weren't wearing masks. And so I said, we're done.
The cops that you sold ammo to, let me get the cops that you sold ammo to, ratted you out to the health department for not wearing masks.
Yep, that's exactly correct.
Oh, God damn.
In full disclosure, we hadn't worked with them in about 2 years, but we did work with them for 2 years prior to that. And, these cops hang out in our parking lot sometimes. We go out and chat them up, and, they're pretty friendly for the most part. But, yeah, I just decided why I don't need the money at this point, and I'll be damned if I'm going to support people that watch cities burn to the ground and do nothing.
Right.
And then have the gall to come in my business and write a report that results in me getting fined. There's another company in the industry, Barrett Firearms, who doesn't sell their rifles to law enforcement in California or New York, because in those states, citizens aren't allowed to possess 50 caliber rifles. And so that's been the case for more than a decade, if I remember correctly. And so if I wouldn't pretend to say that I'm in the same category as a company like Barrett, but it seemed to work out pretty well for them. Well, they don't seem to be suffering.
Well, I think you are in the same category as Barrett. You're governed by your principles, not your need. So that makes you in the same category. And I'm proud to be here with you. Right? So, Justin, tell me, let's talk about a subject that's on everybody's mind. I need to know what the hell is wrong with the ammunition industry right now. Why can we not get any rounds? What in the hell? I went to Midway USA. Hell, I've been checking them relatively regular. About once every 2 weeks I go over there. And it's been 3 or 4 months, seems like, since they've had anything in stock. I guess they get some stuff in stock, and about an hour later it's gone, that sort of thing. And they're a big outfit. I've bought stuff from them for years. But nobody has any ammunition right now. What is that? Just give us a little lesson here as to where the bottleneck is. I mean, we've heard it's primers. I haven't heard it's brass. I've heard powder. I don't know. What is going on? Are they buying it as fast as you can make it? And there's nothing wrong with the supply. It's just demand is up so high. What's the analysis here?
Yeah, it's a multi-factor problem. The demand right now is at an outrageous level. I mean, last week we put up 300,000 rounds of 9mm for sale, and it was gone in less than 5 minutes. I mean, it would have taken us a month.
0.3 million rounds was gone in 5 minutes.
If we would have had 1 million rounds, it would have been gone in 10 minutes, maybe less, because people would have just have bought more.
Right.
So the real issue is demand is for sure through the roof, but the choke point is primers. And so the reason that the choke point is almost always primers in these situations is because primers are difficult to make. They're very small. They have to be assembled precisely. The explosive compound in the primer has to be mixed on site. So it's very complicated. And when they design these plants, they design them like any other high volume, low profit margin manufacturing. They're trying to run at 80 to 90% all the time, regardless of demand. And so when demand gets spikes as much as it has been, it takes them a long time. They're not going to go buy $15 million worth of equipment, only to install all that equipment, and a year later the demand drops off. And that's basically what happened to the industry in 2016. Or 2017, everybody was so sure Hillary was going to win. They were investing a ton of money into ramping up production, and then that didn't happen. So they had this huge glut of supply. They were holding on to notes that they couldn't pay. You had a lot of bankruptcies within the industry. So people are even more leery now to get involved with ramping up production. So the problem with primers is that they're all made by there's only four companies in the United States that really make primers. And all those companies make their own ammunition. They're vertically integrated. That's why they make primers. So they're happy to sell people like us primers when things are slow, but when things are busy, they just don't have the time. And it takes a long time for a small company like us to figure out that aspect of the supply chain. We are trying to import them from some companies overseas, but having never done those permits before, it's a time-consuming process. You have to have a lot of cash on hand, and you have to be willing to fork that cash over and wait 60 to 90 days to get your product. So it's very similar to what's happening in the weightlifting industry with plates and bars, except it's much harder to build primers than it is to get the raw steel that you need to make plates.
And barbells and plates aren't regulated by the ATF. So
we can't get primers from China. It's illegal. We can't import from countries that don't abide by ITAR regulations that we have to follow.
So if you had access to primers, then you could be running. You could ramp up your capacity, right?
Yeah. Capacity is not a problem. With our equipment, we can make reasonably about 125 to 150,000 rounds a day. We can't quality inspect it quite that quickly, but we're working on an automated solution right now to do that. We'll have a big piece of equipment to speed that up. So, I mean, when we did have primers in March and April, and demand was as unlimited as it was now, we were working 7 days a week. It was no big deal. And then when the primers started to slow down, we had to start to cut back and try to decide, okay, how are we going to manage this process? We can't just take pre-orders or back orders and assume that we're going to get the primers, because we just don't really know. So for a while, brass was tougher to get. A lot of what we do is remanufactured brass. And so when all the gun ranges were closed and the military wasn't training, that dried up the supply of raw brass. That's become better, although right now, because of the prices on ammo, very few people are actually shooting. Most people are hoarding it and storing it.
Well, you can't.
There isn't a lot of raw brass. Right, you can't.
You can't shoot.
Yeah, you're shooting 60 cents every time you pull the trigger. And so what was already a rather expensive sport is becoming almost unobtainable for the average person. And that really sucks more than anything. I mean, obviously, we love the idea that there's a huge amount of demand. We don't have to do a lot of marketing. It's a seller's market. But to be honest, I would much rather see our ammo going into the hands of a competitive shooter who is training and keeping their skills fresh, doing something fun, than I would see that ammo sit in somebody's basement for 20 years, never get used, and just kind of be there. It's like if you see somebody who buys a bunch of weightlifting equipment and they use it as a coat rack, I mean, sure, you're happy you made the sale, but
yeah, that's not why we made it, though. And it's the same. Here's the other deal. It may be 60 cents a round, where it used to be 15, but you're not sure whether you can replace it or not. You know, and you don't know whether you're going to be able to replace that box that you took to the range. You have no idea. So what you do is you don't shoot because you don't have the option. If, in fact, you think you might need it for something later, you're not going to shoot it today. And, you know, this is not good. I mean, we all do this for fun, you know, in addition to the preparedness aspect of the thing. But so let me back up, and I want to dive into this thing a little bit deeper. You had said, and I've heard this from other people, that we're not going to tool up to make to satisfy an increased demand when the possibility of the demand dropping precipitously would leave us hanging with a bunch of debt and a bunch of debt leveraged against us. This is, I guess this is the case in any volatile market. You know, I mean, the oil and gas industry for many years was in the same situation. The oil and gas industry is famous for ups and downs and bankrupting people and putting people out of work and people going to school for years and years to learn the trade, learn the science, learn all about the engineering and everything, and then suddenly oil drops down to glut level prices and nobody can get a job. I mean, it happened to me a long time ago. It's happened several times since then. And any volatile market is going to create problems. I mean, when it's hot, that's where you make a lot of money. But if you tool up, anticipating that it's always going to be hot, typically you get kicked in the balls because it doesn't work that way. And I would imagine the primer manufacturers are in the same thing. They don't want to tool up to make more primers. I'm sure. I mean, if you've ever seen a little primer, they're little bitty things. Those are the little round things that go in the ass end of the round, and when they react to a firing pin punching a hole in them, they spark the rest of the powder. It flares off and creates pressure behind the round and shoots the bullet down the barrel of the gun. The primer does that. It's a little bitty thing, very precision piece of equipment. And who makes primers? Olin, I know, is one of the companies. Is that right?
And Olin is the parent company of Winchester. So basically,
right.
You have Winchester, Remington, and then CCI and Federal are both owned by Orbital ATK, which is a big multinational company that makes everything from small ammunition to 40 millimeter cannon rounds and missiles, things much larger than that. Yeah, the issue is not only is it a small and precise part, but anytime you're asked to make a billion of something a month, that becomes a logistical nightmare. And
yes.
The problem is it has to be highly automated. There's just no way that it can.
No, you can't have humans involved in that at all.
And automation is not cheap. So, these companies have to make a decision on whether they're going to spend tens of millions of dollars. And also, these plants are located in areas that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so even if they build a big addition to their plant, they have to now hire 100 or so people, skilled employees in small towns, Black Hill. Can they find 100 skilled employees in Black Hills, South Dakota on a moment's notice? Probably not.
No.
It's a long tail problem. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the firearms industry is inherently political, just like oil and gas. It rises and falls based on regulation or
public perception.
Public perception or the perception that regulation is on the way, overseas wars, etc. So you're talking about a 4 to 6 year plan for some of these companies, but the ebb and flow is maybe on a 2-year cycle because political elections happen every 2 years. And so it's very tough for them to have a plan that will fit into that cycle that meets up just right. I do know that there is a primer plant that's about ready to be producing primers, a new company, and that's all they're going to do is make primers for the retail market. So that's good. That will help out. Powder will be the other problem. We're starting to see some scarcity with powder. Again, all that stuff is made by basically General Dynamics and DuPont. So you have two big companies that control that whole market. Hodgdon powder, for example, is a General Dynamics product. It's labeled as Hodgdon when it gets to Hodgdon, but when we get it, it's labeled as General Dynamics. So the industry is much smaller than it appears. There are a lot of brand names, but there are very few raw material producers.
Right. There's been some discussion, and I specifically wanted to ask you about this, of some of this problem being introduced by the government buying up a bunch of rounds. Is there any truth to that?
It's hard to say. Truthfully, I don't have all that many connections in those types of areas, but I mean, it does happen. Homeland Security bought several billion rounds back in 2016, and that definitely exacerbated shortages that were happening back then. I believe there was similar things happening, and they.
Homeland Security.
We need to buy all this. And actually, in 2016, I believe it was the IRS that was buying some odd millions of rounds of ammunition, which is pretty.
Right. So because they kill so many people a year in their audits.
Yeah, for not paying that.
Damn. There's FEMA. Has FEMA been buying a bunch of rounds?
Not that I'm aware of, but probably.
Why does the Department of Homeland Security need billions of rounds? Is this training?
Probably. Well, it not based on what I can see in the training classes I've attended, where we have police officers and government employees in the class. They're teaching a whole lot more than they are, but
yeah,
that's going to get my dog shot in my house rated. So
good beat. You better put a vest on your dog, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
You guys ought to start manufacturing those. Those would sell.
That's a whole other issue. Like, for example, AR 500 and AR 550 steel, which is what some armor is made out of, that steel is only made in a couple of steel mills across the world. So they have the same problem. They run into big shortages. And the Kevlar manufacturer, all the body armor is basically made by 2 or 3 different companies and then relabeled, and we sell armor from a company called Spartan Armor Products, but it's actually manufactured by somebody else with a different label on it. So there's a lot of consolidation in that part of the industry too.
I heard from a friend of mine today, car manufacturer. He talked to his steel supplier, and he wanted to buy 100 sheets of steel he uses for sheet metal on his bodies. And they said, "No, I can't do that. We're going to sell you 20." And people don't understand how deeply disrupted every supply chain in the country, probably in the world, is as a result of this insanity we've been dealing with for the past year. People don't understand way down. They go in the grocery store and they see an absence of soup. They do. I mean, you go to the grocery store and there's not any soup. Well, what does that do? What is the fact that everybody's buying all the soup do? Well, we've just had a discussion about this, and you can apply that analysis to the whole goddamn economy. At some level, these abnormal, perverse incentives that we have been exposed to recently have disrupted the economy in ways that I can't understand it. I mean, most people can't understand this. Why? I need a can of chicken broth, and I go to the store, and there isn't any fucking chicken broth.
Part of it is, you mentioned perverse incentives. Unfortunately, with a lot of this coronavirus relief, it's actually made things worse. They think it's supporting these companies, but when you're paying people to stay home and giving companies free money. I mean, here in Oakland County, our county got several $1 million worth of coronavirus relief, and they thought the best way to spend that money was to buy a bunch of $25,000 3D printers and give them away to companies as part of a grant program, so that in the next pandemic, we can use these 3D printers to print personal protective equipment.
Masks. Now that...
Something like $12 million.
That is some convoluted shit. Right? Now, on the other hand, this is real simple. We have a little fried chicken chain down here in the southern United States that inhabits, gas stations all over the place. Chester's Fried Chicken. Well, I like it. I think it's real damn good fried chicken. So I go over to they have a store over on 287 on my way into town. I stop in there. Third time I've stopped in there, and the damn thing is closed. And so I asked the girl at the front counter, I said, "Are you guys out of business over here with the chicken stand?" And she says, "We can't get anybody to work. Do you know anybody that wants a job? We need to have the chicken up, but we can't find anybody to make the chicken. Because the government is paying them to stay home." This is... history is going to look back on this year as possibly the most fucked up thing that's ever occurred on the surface of the earth. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of think that bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki was not quite that big a deal compared to bombing the economy of the world, the whole economy of the whole world. There's little isolated incidents like that just are dwarfed by this game that people are playing.
Amazon, Walmart do it pretty well.
Amazon, Walmart love it. Oh, God, yeah. Hell, Walmart doesn't even have to stay open 24 hours a day anymore. They don't have to keep everything in stock. You order stuff from them, and they substitute for you when they don't have something on your order. Amazon, I mean, if you don't want to go in a big giant building full of people wearing these things on their faces that say, "I do as I'm told," then you have to order shit from Amazon, whether you want to or not. That's where books are sold. That's where everything is sold. What choice do you have? So this is a big, giant perturbation.
Yeah, it's worked out real well for them, and it doesn't seem to bother people, especially on the political left, as much as I think. Unfortunately, this is a real good preview for a future where, honestly, people have been afraid to tell the government no for a long time. I think we both know that, but we're getting to the point where the government doesn't even have to tell you what to do. They're letting private companies tell you what to do, and that absolves them of having to use force and violence to enforce what they want you to do.
And you've just demonstrated that you'll do it. You just told them, "Yeah, all right, I'll wear this ridiculous mask." Doesn't do a goddamn thing. But it is a handy indicator that I would do as I'm told. And, I mean, here we are sitting in Texas. It was 8 below zero here last night. And everybody's pipes are frozen. Everybody's house is colder than they want it to be. People are freezing to death. and they're still wearing their masks. Oh my God! What are you fucking people? This is just more than I could process most of the time. It really is. It's just I can't run this shit through my head and have it come out in an ordered way on the other side. I just can't do it.
I got two great things for you. So first, my wife's a professor at Michigan State University, and she has to go back in to teach lab classes. She teaches gross anatomy, among other things. And in the lab, they are requiring them to wear not just one mask, but two masks and a face shield.
Well, yeah, because someone might get sick. Someone might get sick. And we can't have that. Because when people get sick, they feel bad.
But I've actually, this is even better. I don't know if you'll be able to handle this, but in Ann Arbor, which is about the equivalent to Austin, they are still doing completely virtual learning in their schools, right? So the kids are at home. And I saw a report this morning that said they declared a snow day today because they want
at home.
Yes, they declared a snow day because it was the superintendent said it was we all remember snow days, and those are a great part of our childhood, and we need to keep that tradition going.
Keep the tradition of snow days going when you don't have to go in the snow.
Yeah, for kids sitting at home on a computer. Yeah, they had a snow day.
Well, you know,
what can you say?
I don't know.
I don't know what you say, except that, you know, they're probably better off at home. If you got the choice of having a teachers union interact with your child or you interact with your child, I know what I'm going to do, even though I don't have any children. My theoretical children. I don't want my kids around these fucking people. Do you? I mean, God. No, you can't have it. Well,
they're going to be in for a rude awakening pretty soon.
In fact,
I think they've made some bets, and I don't think it's going to pay off for them in the long run because people are looking at charter schools and private schools.
Yes.
Together,
home schools. People are looking at their own living room and they're saying,
yeah. Looks good.
What's wrong with that?
Right.
You know?
I can put a chalkboard up if I think I need to. You know, I sit on the couch. Yeah. You know, if the little bastards smart off to me, I can actually spank them.
Maybe that'll be a new market segment for Starting Strength. You guys can be the new gym teacher for all these homeschooled kids. Right?
Write that down.
No. That doesn't sound like fun at all.
Write that down. Write it on that board. Right?
What a terrible idea.
You don't think that's a good idea? Oh, shit. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Justine? What?
Rip in every living room.
You get that flat rip thing that Paul Horn made.
It'd be like they roll the TV.
We just sell that. Yeah.
We good.
Think of the power rack sales. We need to get a bigger percentage.
I got to thank Grant. We're getting a rack and some equipment here at the shop so our guys can lift here because the gym that we used to have them lift at is still closed.
Right.
So we're setting up shop here and we're going to get these guys back on the program.
Well, that's good. His plates are the best probably I've ever seen. His rack is a piece of junk. You want to buy that rack from Texas Strength Systems because his rack it's lighter and easier to move around, but it's a piece of junk. It's just, you know, it was designed for Californians, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, right. That's true.
So, well, all right, Nick, did we miss anything?
No.
We discussed it all.
Yeah.
Pissed a bunch of people off.
Good.
Which is, I mean, if we hadn't pissed anybody off at the end of one of these things,
what are we doing?
What the hell are we doing here?
We're just gonna
Rob Pincus.
We're just gonna retreat.
We're acting like Rob Pincus.
We'll just retreat to our respective echo chambers.
Right, echo chambers. I'm sick of having to learn vocabulary words.
Echo chambers.
What is an echo chamber? That's where.
This right here is an echo chamber.
This is an echo chamber.
We all think similarly.
Oh, where you think so? So I'm echoing, and so we're all echoing back and forth. Yeah. All right, what does gaslighting mean? I get so tired of hearing that fucking shit. Every third word on every newscast is gaslighting, and I don't have the slightest idea what the fuck it means.
Gaslighting is basically when you're the one in the wrong, but you convince the other person that they're in the wrong.
You're in the media.
We know about that, don't we?
So you're in the media, right?
Yeah, you're in the media, precisely. Right.
Well, where did that term come from?
It's in a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but in the movie, the main character is an abusive husband of some sort, and he keeps turning down the gas light in their house, like a gas lantern, and the wife keeps asking if the room is darker, and he keeps telling her, no, you're crazy. The room's not darker. It's all in your head.
Right.
So that's where it came from. But honestly, the only people I ever hear use that are people on the political left.
Right.
They seem to be the ones that are the best at it.
Yeah. Well, you're just gaslighting, and I'm supposed to know what the fuck, And if I don't know, I'm stupid.
You're uncultured.
Right. I'm an oaf.
It's from the 1938 stage play called Gaslight.
Well,
that's exactly.
There you have it. Just invented by somebody. That reminds me of the Star Trek episode where Picard is captured by the Cardassians. You remember that?
Oh, and the three lights.
The three lights.
Yeah.
How many lights are there? There's 3 lights. No, Captain Picard, there are 4 lights. Mm-hmm. You will come to understand
Great
this.
Episode.
Yeah, 2-part episode.
Yeah, it's
that
great.
Stewart is just I really miss that. Yeah. That was some great work.
That's basically the last scene in 1984, correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
How many fingers am I holding up? Yeah.
Same kind of deal. Same kind of deal. If you haven't seen that episode of Star Trek, you ought to break down and watch it. Even if you're not a fan, this is just to watch Stewart do this. He was good. He was really good. Yeah. So, anybody else have anything? Bree, you have anything you want to say? Let me guess. No. Nick, you want to?
I'm good. All good.
Rust-Oleum, what do you?
You're fine.
Bree, I got to get you to, I don't know, I got to get you to help my wife figure out her bench press. So.
Bree can help you with that.
Bree, no. What Bree's going to say, if you ask Bree to do that, Bree's going to say, I'm good. Because that's all she knows how to say. I'm good. Rusty, on the other hand, will help your wife.
I think I have a few times on the internet.
Have you really? Yeah. Did Justin know that?
Actually has been. Oh yeah.
Justin knew that or not?
I don't know.
Yeah. That's what between Justin and his wife. Whatever.
Hey,
whatever she told him.
Justin's got more ammo than Rusty. I guarantee.
Well, that is certainly true.
That's true. The guy that owns the ordnance company is the one that you want to slide into his wife's DMs.
Right.
I take videos and she posts them up, and yeah, Rusty's been great.
Yeah, Rusty's great. We love Rusty.
He's just the best.
He's the best. He's the cat's meow.
No sarcasm.
Rusty's the cat's meow. Okay. All right, let's get out of here before we embarrass ourselves any further. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you being with us again. We'll talk soon. And thank you guys for being with us on Starting Strength Radio next week. Bye now.